Ladies and gentlemen and multimedia designers, we're going to learn how to organize your files and folders, and I want you to get points for all the stuff we're doing. So in order to get the points, I want you to take the notes on the spiel we're doing right now. I want you to follow the directions and organize your files and folders on your PC and your Google Drive. We're going to take a practice test in Canvas at the end, and when I get back, we're going to do an oral quiz on this material. All right, write this at the top of your notes: organizing files and folders plus naming conventions. So why are we doing this? You need to be able to find your work quickly. Other people need to find your work quickly. I need to find your work quickly. I don't know how many times kids have lost their work and asked me to find it. Well, if you haven't organized it in any way and you can't find it, how in the world am I going to find it? When you get a job, you may have coworkers who need to get into your stuff and find your work, and that's important that they can find it easily. All right, the other thing is you don't want to copy and over lose work. So for example, if you're in Adobe Illustrator, it will default the name of a project to project 1, and if you just save it as project 1, open another project, do a second project, it'll save the second project also as project 1, and when you save that, it's going to copy over your first project, and you're going to lose a month of work, and it happens 10 times a year, and it's very sad. So make sure that when you save things, you give them good names. Make sure that you wrote this heading at the top with your name in it. Okay, so here we go. Quiz question: what is a file and what is a folder? Well, let me show you. So if you look over here, this little thing, that is a folder. What does it do? It holds files and other folders. It holds stuff. That's all. It's just like a little placeholder, really. All right, so now if we go into Vector Design Illustrator and then we go into our wall art project, you can actually see the files. So this is an actual project in Adobe Illustrator. So like a Word document, something you typed into, or an art project. These are actually the things that we're using, the projects we're doing, and they need to be saved, organized in folders. Okay, so the purpose of a folder is to hold files and other folders and to help keep things organized and easy to find. All right, so here are the rules or the conventions or the guidelines for making folders. Okay, you have to come up with a structure for your folder. So for example, if you were working in the real world, would you do it based on the name of the project or based on the name of the client? Well, that'd be up for you to decide. Whenever one you chose, though, you'd have to be consistent and stick with it. Okay, but the first step is to decide on a structure. For us in here, I'm deciding for you. I'm just going to have you do it the way I want you to do it and learn my way. You may like it, you may not, but you've learned a way, and you can come up with your own way after this class. All right, so number 2, I want you to have a folder for your main classes and subjects. So you need, for every class that you have, that should be a folder that you have in your Novell drive with your name on it. In this class, I want you to have a folder for each unit as well. So inside your Creative Computer folder, your class folder, then you're going to have a folder for each unit. And another rule that you should have is don't have too many folders. So in the real world, you want just the right amount of folders. If you have too many, then it actually makes it more difficult to find stuff. So I tend to have, in this class, we actually kind of have to have a lot because we have so many assets in there. So each project has all kinds of other stuff that goes with it. So for example, when you were working on an Adobe Illustrator project, well, you had all the pictures that you used to go into it, right? So one project has lots of files. So we have to have a lot of folders in this class. All right, so also rule number 5, have a folder and an assets folder for each project. What does that mean? Okay, well, what that means is here's my bird wall art. So here's my Creative Computer class, here's my vector design, there's the unit, and then here's the project. So for each project, I have a folder, and then inside there I have it. So here's that project, right? And then in order to make this, I had an asset. I had a picture that I started with, and so that goes into another folder called Assets. Okay, so in my Assets folder are all the pictures I used in this thing. And then another thing you can do, so here's the project, I'm working on it, and somebody said, hey, can I have a picture of that? I love it, it's so beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, do you want me to send it to you in Adobe Illustrator? I'm like, no, I don't have Adobe Illustrator. So I'd say, okay, File, Save for Web and Devices. I'm going to save it as a PNG, right? So I'm going to save it as a PNG and hit Save. Well, where would I save it? I'm going to hit Cancel because I've already got it. Well, I would end up just saving it right here because it's not an asset, it's not something I'm using, it's the final project, right? So I would save it right there, birdwallart.png. So the project and then the final file would all go right here in the main folder for the project, and then all the assets would go in the asset folder. All right. Okay, so I want you to get started and actually do this. I want you to create a folder for all your classes. So you're going to go to your folder with your name on it. You're going to go with your folder with your name on it, your Novell drive. And then you're going to go into Creative Computer, and then you're going to make a folder for each class. So you can have Creative Computers. Okay, you're going to have English, you're going to have Spanish, whatever classes you have, make those folders. Okay, and everything that belongs in those folders needs to be dragged into those folders. Also, you're going to do it for the cloud as well. So that means you're going to do it for you're going to also do it for your Google Drive. So how do you do this? Well, the first thing you do is you go into your Google Drive, you click make a new folder, and you're going to type in Creative Computers. You're going to make a new folder for English, Spanish, so on and so forth. And then once you get a folder for each of your classes, then you drag stuff into the classes. So for example, you could just click on this file and drag it into the class it went into, and just make sure you can switch it to whatever view you want that makes it easier. But do the same thing for your PC and for your Google Drive as well. Make a folder for each class that you have. All right. So for this class, you're going to make a folder for each of the main units, and this is just going to be for the PC only. So what does that mean? That means you're going to go into your Novell drive. You're going to go into Creative Computers, and then you're going to make a new folder click for each of the main subject areas, units, and that's going to be Vector Design Illustrator, Raster Design Photoshop, Web Design, all of these. So make all of those folders. All right. Next, you need to have a main folder and an assets folder for each project. So, okay, so we don't know what the projects are yet, or you don't know what the projects are yet, so we're not going to do this, but so let's make sure you have that for what we have so far. So you're going to Creative Computer, you're going to go into Vector Design Illustrator, and so for your, like I showed you with the wall art, the main projects here and the assets folder there and all the pictures in there. Make sure you take some time and do that for all the projects that we've done so far. All right, now let's talk about naming conventions. So we talked about how to name stuff. By the way, this is the portrait landscape where it's taller than it is wide. This would be like a picture of people. A landscape is where it's longer. And I think that's going to be part of the test, so I wanted to make sure you knew that terminology. All right, here's naming conventions. When you name a folder or file, avoid the weird special characters. It makes it harder to find things in a search or a Google search. They sometimes have a specific use, so they won't even let you use it. For example, a / is used to identify folders in a PC. So if you look at this, the little backslash has a special use. That's a folder. So at any rate, so try to avoid those weird characters. Write this down in your notes, everything in red. Write down in your notes. Rule number 2, don't use periods, because if you look, a period is what the PC how it knows what program to open it with. So that's the file extension. So that is a .ai, Adobe Illustrator. It knows, hey, I'm going to open this in Adobe Illustrator. This is a .png, so the Windows knows that that is a picture that you're going to use. So don't use the periods unless, because they already have a special use. Okay? All right. When you name something, keep the name short. So what I'm talking about by the name, just in case you were wondering, is we're talking about how to name folders and also how to name files. So the file's name birdwallart.ai. So what are rules for naming files and folders? Okay, so keep it short but describe it well. So it's really important that it's short, because you want to be able to see the whole thing, right? So if I click over here and this name was too long, I wouldn't even be able to see it, right? So I got to keep it somewhat short, but you need to describe it well. This is not true anymore. Hard to copy files with long. That used to be true 5 or 6 years ago. That's not true anymore. Okay, but you have to describe it well. Why do you need to describe it well? Well, when I look at it, I should be able to figure out what it is. Okay, well, it's a wall art, and it's a wall art that I drew a bird. Okay, well, that's fairly descriptive. I know what it is. It's good enough. Okay, so but you need to have a description that makes me know what that file is. The file name should include all the necessary descriptive information so that you can figure out what it is, even if you moved it to a different folder. So look, if I had a folder called World War I, Posters, and Owens, and I had another folder called World War I, Posters, Red Cross, and I put a picture in this Owens folder called 001, and I put a picture in here called 001. Well, if this picture got dragged out of that folder, I'd have no idea what it was. So this is a terrible name. It It doesn't even have close to enough information, so if it got pulled out of the folder, I'd have to know, I wouldn't have any idea what it was. All right, naming conventions. Rule number 5, include a 2-digit version number. So whenever you're working on something, you should save it, and like after a couple days, you should save that as version 001, and then V002. So for example would be, if this thing was version 2, I'd come after it, and I'd say, okay, let's name this V02. And so that I'd know that's my second version. You can put a space there if that helps you. You could put a capital V. That actually might be better as well. Okay, but save it, and then eventually, a few days later, save it of version 3. And that way, you have versions, and if one gets corrupted or gets destroyed, you can always go back. So it's nice to have versions of something. Okay, be consistent. Okay, so for example, I had a folder called World War I posters, and I had another folder called World War II posters, and then on this one I called it posters/World War. Well, I switched my consistency here. So do I start off with the main topic, or do I switch to what it is? All right, next. Rule number 7, use capital. Let's see how I used a capital letter in the file names. So it just makes things easier to read. If you want to put spaces, you can, but sometimes it's nice if you just put capitals because it makes the file name quite a bit shorter. Rule number 8, stay organized with files and folders that are also named well. We kind of already covered that. And then, all right, the next one says leave the extension alone. So what that means is if I come over here and I click in here and I get rid of the .ai part, okay, the program will have no idea. The program will have no idea what this thing is. Let's see if we can see it. It has no idea what it doesn't know it's an Adobe Illustrator document anymore. Okay, so never mess with the file extension. So I'm going to click and put that back. And sometimes people want to just change these things, but it's not a good idea. Okay, so if I put the extension back in and click it, it knows it's an Adobe Illustrator document, and that's okay to do because it actually is, but if you name it something it's not, that won't work at all. All right, so leave the file extensions alone. So here's examples of good name. Let's say I took a portrait of Joe by the creek. So I have a little space or an underscore there. I can tell exactly what it is. It's a portrait of Joe, where it is. I know this is version 1, and then this is a landscape of a pine tree. Anyway, so here's an example of a good way to name a picture or a file so I know exactly what it is. All right, so don't forget to turn in these notes. Don't forget to actually do what it said and organize the files and folders on your PC and drive. So now your job is to go on to the practice test, and actually this video is I'm going to go on to the quiz in a second.